Now we're going to talk about that second branch of the immune system, which is your adaptive immunity, which is the branch of the immune system that's very specific. It's looking for very specific pathogens. Now, the most important thing about the adaptive immune system is you need your immune system to respond to foreign antigens, things that are bad for the body, like pathogens. But sometimes what happens is the immune system over responds, and it doesn't only respond to bad stuff, it also responds to harmless antigens. And if your body's responding to a harmless antigen, this can lead to something called an allergy. And it's a problem that a lot of people have where the immune system's overreacting. The other negative thing that could happen is if your immune system responds to yourself, so your immune system actually attacks your self-antigen. If this happens, we call this an autoimmune disorder. So in all of these things we're going to be thinking about in this video, we are thinking about how the immune system figures out if something is foreign and attacks foreign antigens. So real quick, antigens are any molecule that stimulate the immune system. So it could be a piece of a virus, okay, or a piece of a bacteria that your immune system sees as foreign and is bad. And this is the good thing. You want your body to respond to these bad guys. But sometimes, like I mentioned, your own immune system could respond to something like gluten or fish or peanuts, okay? And you have an allergy to these things. This is where your immune system is overreacting. Another place you can find antigens is on our red blood cells. And I'm going to talk about how our body creates antibodies against specific blood types. So the first major component of your adaptive immune system are your B cells, okay? B cells are made in your bone marrow. That's where they're made, and they also mature in the bone marrow. Now, here's how a B cell works. B cells have these little Y-shaped proteins on their surface. These are called antibodies. So B cells have these antibodies. The antibodies are going to bind to antigens. So antibodies are the good guys here. We like antibodies. Antigens are the bad guys. So in each antibody fits to an antigen, like a lock and a key. So here you can see this B cell, its antibody is going to stick to the antigen on this bacteria, on this pathogen. When the B cell first meets its pathogen, it will then activate. And when a B cell activates, two things can happen. Some of the B cells will form what's called memory B cells. And the purpose of memory B cells is to remember this pathogen in case it ever comes back. It'll fight it even faster. Some of the B cells will form into another kind of cell called a plasma cell. The job of the plasma cell is plasma cells are going to secrete a ton of antibodies into your blood. So plasma cells secrete antibodies, and those antibodies will go off and attack any pathogens that are around. So one more time with the pretty picture here. Pathogens will bind to B cells. The B cell will then activate. Some of the B cells will form memory B cells, okay? And their job is to remember this pathogen in case it ever comes back, so you don't get sick twice with the same thing. The other group of B cells will form plasma cells. Plasma cells secrete a whole bunch of antibodies. Antibodies will bind to that bad bacteria and mark it for destruction. Your body has trillions of different B cells, okay? It's not like you have just one. You have trillions of different types. Each B cell recognizes one specific pathogen. So one B cell may recognize mono, another B cell recognizes the flu, another B cell recognizes a cold. Okay, so each B cell is very specific to the antigen it binds to. So let's talk real quick about these antibodies. Antibodies are also known as immunoglobulin. They are Y-shaped proteins. Okay, so they have these two arms. The arms here are what bind to the antigen. So one antibody can bind to two different antigens, and each antibody is very specific. It's like a lock and key. So this one antibody can only bind to this little green antigen. There's another antibody out there somewhere that could bind to this one, but each antibody is very specific. The stem region, okay, here, it does not bind to an antigen. Instead, the stem is a signal. Okay, it signals that there's a pathogen here, and then a macrophage, okay, Mr. Pac-Man can come in and chomp up this bad antigen. So that's how antibodies work. Along with antibodies binding to these foreign pathogens, another place where you see antigens and antibodies is in your blood type. And we've talked before about different blood types, but let's now talk about different antigen and antibodies that correspond with your blood type. All right. So for example, if you have type A blood, then you have these A antigens on your blood. That's just the way it is. You have A antigens. Now, because you have A antigens, also in your blood, you have anti-B antibodies. All right. Anti-B. Now, let's say somebody with type A blood is in an accident or they need blood quickly, and they've been given a donation of type B blood. Now, type B blood has different antigens on it. It has type B antigens, a lot different than type A antigens. What will happen if somebody who has type A blood gives, and they get the wrong kind of blood, they get B, their anti-B antibodies are going to come over and they're going to bind to the B blood. When antibodies bind to the B blood, this is going to signal the blood cell for destruction. And those macrophages, those Pac-Man, is going to come in and destroy those red blood cells. So this would be really bad if somebody who has type A received a donation of type B blood. That just doesn't work. It would also happen in the reverse, okay? If somebody with type B blood received a donation of type A, then the body would destroy this type A blood. Remember, some people have type AB blood. So these people have both A antigens on their blood and they have B antigens on their blood also. So these people they have neither A or B antibody, which means if you give somebody who with AB a type A blood, that's fine. Their body can accept it. If you give them a type B blood, that's fine. Their body will accept it. So if you have type AB blood, you are what's called a universal acceptor. You can accept blood from type A, B, AB, or type O. All right? No matter what, this is great. AB blood can take blood from anybody and it'll be healthy and happy. Lastly, a person could have type O blood. If you have type O blood, your blood cells are free and clear. There's no antigens on your blood cell at all. But the problem is, if you have type O blood, you have both anti-A antibodies and you have anti-B antibodies. So if you have type O blood and you were given a donation of either A, B, or AB, then these antibodies will attack all of these foreign blood cells and destroy them. So type O blood can only receive blood from another type O. The cool thing about type O blood is because there's no antigens on the surface of the blood cell, this blood can be given to anybody. So just like we said, type AB was the universal acceptor. They can accept blood from anybody. Type O blood, on the other hand, is the universal donor. If you have type O blood, your blood is gold because you can give blood to anybody and they'll be healthy and fine. Okay, so Red Cross really wants you to donate blood. If you have type O blood, that's great, all right? So that's another way antigens and antibodies work. Now, the final component of the adaptive immune system, we talked about B cells, which are those cells that make antibodies to destroy any foreign pathogen. You also have T cells, okay? And there's actually two different types of T cells. The first type is called a cytotoxic T cell. The cytotoxic T cell, its job is to kill cells infected with virus. So if you have a viral infection, such as the flu, okay, or a cold, and I don't want to say it, but if somebody has the coronavirus, okay, all right, the way that these viruses work, viruses need to get inside of your nice healthy cells. So for example, this coronavirus, it will go inside of a respiratory cell. It gets in there and it starts replicating, okay, and it's hiding out inside of a respiratory cell. It's hiding from antibodies. Antibodies can't get in there. So what you need is a cytotoxic T cell to come in and save the day. All right, so what's going to happen is the cytotoxic T cell is going to bind to this infected respiratory cell. It's going to release a death package, okay, kind of like the natural killer death package. But this death package is going to punch holes in the respiratory cell. Unfortunately, it's going to kill the infected cell, but it'll also kill any viruses that were hiding out in there. So it'll destroy it. And then the cytotoxic T cell can go off and find another cell to kill. So that's the job of the cytotoxic T cell. The second type of T cell is a helper T cell. Helper T cells, their job is to help activate B cells and cytotoxic T cells. So they help activate the adaptive immune responses.